Hello and welcome. Kendra Morgan here with Cards by Kendra. Today I'm sharing an easel card that I made using the Catrina stamp set, the Aviary oval die, and the Blooming Medley paper pack from TLC Designs. The Catrina stamp set is one of the new stamp sets that was just released on August 15th. I have several different layouts here, but I'm going to be cutting out the Catrina and the sentiment from this particular layout. Some of the smaller images in this stamp set include some spider webs, candles, sugar skulls, and flowers. Now I'm using the outer oval die here from the Aviary oval die set. This set has another oval piece that's a little bit smaller that cuts out circles, as well as some flowers and leaves, and even some birds, along with some other fun pieces. I'll be using the little flowers and leaf dies here in a little bit. So I'm placing the largest die here on my image and taping it down with some low-tack mint tape, and then I'll be running this through my Big Shot die cutting machine. Next, I'm going to color this beautiful image using some Copic markers. I started out with some skin tones, E55 and then E53, to color around her hairline and her neckline, and then I took my colorless blender to blend it in so that her face would still be white. Then I used B12 around her eyes, and then I started with her hat using some BV17, BV13, and then BV11. So rather than explaining each of my steps, I figured I would just put the Copic marker colors that I'm using on the screen and turn on some music during the coloring process. I have to say this was a lot of fun coloring this image. There's a lot of little parts to it, but I had a blast making her come to life. Now I am going to take the Blooming Medley paper pack and match up the shades of color in my image to the papers that are in this pack. There are some really beautiful floral papers here, and I had a really hard time deciding which one I wanted to use and which one I like best. You can see I've got these 4 solid floral prints here, and then there's one that's got that same purple that's in her hat. But in the end, I decided to go with the one that's kind of like a violet purple color. And I'll just go ahead and show you the rest of the papers. But there are some matching colored wood grain papers that are the same colors as the ones with the florals on the left here. And I ended up using that too. For my card base, I'm using a sheet of 110-pound heavyweight cardstock that I've cut at 4 1/4 inches lengthwise to make my easel card. I've scored it down the middle at 5 1/2 inches and then again at 2 3/4 inches on one side. And I'm burnishing this down with my bone folder. So now that I've done that, here you can kind of get an idea of what the easel card will look like. So here I'm just trying to decide which papers I'm going to place where. So I decided to put the wood grain on the inside and then the floral print on the top of the card. And so next I'm going to be trimming both of these down to measure 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. Even though the card base is already scored, I'm going to glue this floral pattern paper on top and then score it again in the same place so that it will fold properly. I'm using some Nouveau Deluxe liquid adhesive, and this gives me just enough time to scoot the papers directly in the center of my card base so I can put them where I want them. And I'm going to go ahead and glue the other pattern paper on the inside as well. I let the glue dry, and now I'm taking my scoreboard and I'm going to score this again at 2 3/4 inches so that the easel part will work, and I'm going to use my bone folder to help burnish that down. The oval piece is what will stick up once the sentiment gets glued down on the inside. So for the sentiments, I'm using the Dia de los Muertos and the one that says, "It's not death we should fear, but not having lived." And I'm using the oval piece from the Apple a Day die set to cut the sentiment out of the center of that layout. I thought it was the perfect size and it went well with the oval piece from the Aviary oval die set. So I cut that out using my die cutting machine, and I also decided to cut out a bunch of little flowers and leaves from this same set. I also took my scissors and cut out the sugar skulls, and I colored all of the little flowers and leaves using some Copic markers off camera. Now I cut 2 additional smaller ovals to glue behind the sentiment just to give it some extra thickness so that the card will be able to be propped up behind the sentiment to make the easel part. I put glue on the bottom half of the large oval colored image piece, and I left the top part with no glue behind it so that it would stick up. But in hindsight, I wish I had cut out an additional blank oval piece to glue on the back side to hide all of the colors that bled through the cardstock. so that you wouldn't be able to see it when the easel's propped up. But I didn't think about it at the time, unfortunately. But I cut a piece of white cardstock to measure 3 3/4 inches by 2 3/4 inches, and I glued that to the top of the inside of the card so that I'd have room to write a message. And then I glued down the sentiment towards the bottom. And I also glued some sugar skulls down on each side of the sentiment. Next, I layered the colored flowers and leaf die cuts on the bottom portion of the oval on both sides, and I'm gluing those down. Here I'm taking some iridescent rhinestone gems and I'm coloring them with my yellow Y15 Copic alcohol marker, and I'm going to set that aside to dry. I added some Nuvo crystal drops in Morning Dew to her eyes to give it some shine. This does dry clear, so you'll be able to see the color of whatever you apply this to through it. I also added some Gold Stickles glitter glue to the little flames on all of the candles. And then I placed the yellow bling into the centers of all of the small die cut flowers using my spatula tweezers. And this finishes off my card. It was a lot of fun to make and super easy. I love making easel cards because your recipient can place it on display like artwork. Plus, this image was super fun to color. I really hope you like it. If so, click the thumbs up and leave a comment. Also, please consider subscribing if you're not already a subscriber. Check out the links to the products I used today in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Have a wonderful crafty day.